So one of my Patreons wrote and asked if I could emulate the Microcosm pedal in any way. I don't own the pedal, and I'm not saying this replicates the pedal in any way or even completely, but I had a look what was possible with the Ableton stock effects basically. So I had a go, have a listen. There's a couple of different styles of music. We've got some drums, some vocal, and some atmospheric loops. Let's just have a listen for a minute or two and then I'll explain what's going on. And as always, if you're interested in building this, how you can build it yourself.
Everlasting, no. What I need couldn't get here faster. Memories run down in head first. You know I can't breathe through the sound of laughter. Running back, time I wasted, time I had, one of the ones that I would last. All my patience, everlasting, no. What I need couldn't get here faster.
So there's a lot to get through. I'll try and go as quickly as I can because I don't want to make this video too long. I think it'll be quite a long video. Um, the microcosm, well, as I said, I don't own one, but I had a look at Starsky Carr's review or tutorial on the microcosm. I'll link that below so you can have a look if you're interested in the real McCoy. But as I say, I was asked, could I create any of the effects that the microcosm brings to the table, if you like. And we'll just have a quick look at what we have here and what was possible using, I say, the bass effects in Ableton. We have a redux, we have a pitch shifter here, beat repeat, delay, reverb, and finally on the end we have a limiter. So that these are the elements of the rack. We'll come to these more in the build. Just want to concentrate now just on the functionality of the rack. So the first thing we have then is an ability to shift the pitch. I'm working with a sample now, so and it's not time stretched, so if you went higher, get a bit of Mickey Mouse, but you can, within a reasonable range, pitch shift this. If you were using a synth or something else, you could probably get a bit better quality. But here we go. So we can add an overtone. We can mix this in. We can have none of the pitch shift, or we can introduce the pitch shift. Let's put it on full to begin with. Then we have the possibility to sort of adjust the texture, even start to break it up a little bit. So we have some control over the texture of the pitch shifting. After that we have a beat repeat which we can control. Here's the probability of the beat repeat activating. You can go to 100%. It'll activate 100% at the time, or we can change different values here. This here, loop frequency, we can see in the beat repeat is the interval. So this defines, down a little bit, this defines when, how often, I mean, the audio is grabbed. So here it's grabbing it every 8th note. We can adjust this every quarter note. We can go faster. Let's go to 8th, quarter, or we can go all the way up to a 1 bar. So it'll grab the audio, go around 1 bar, then grab the audio, or it'll grab it every half a bar. This is how big a slice it grabs. At the moment we're on a 30-second here. This is this grid here, 1/32. So we could get it to grab larger pieces of audio with a glitch. Just speed this up a bit. Go back to an 8. So we can get it to grab larger or smaller. Smaller pieces of audio. So this is the slice size here. So there we'll reduce the chance again. And this one here, the loop filter, this defines what frequencies are affected by this beat repeat. If I push this right up, increase the chance, you'll hear that the lower frequencies are not affected, but only some of the higher. So we're effectively able to filter out which, if I go down to the lower, maybe you'll hear that here now. This will affect the lower frequencies. If I open up the filter, the lower frequencies remain intact. So this is quite handy for drum loops. So we can keep the bass drum pumping through, but add glitchy overtones to the snare or hi-hats or whatever. Move that back up. So you can hear only the higher tones, and as I open this up here, then I start to come down here. You'll see this here. I start to move down through the frequencies, and more of the audio is introduced into the glitcher. So this is a nice way of adding sort of those glitchy effects on top of your loop or whatever you music with, whatever, without completely glitching everything out. Let's turn this down a bit again. So we have that to add those kind of glitchy effects which you get on the microcosm. Then we have here, so the middle would be 64. If we go here, we're going towards the bass. If we stay in the middle, then it kind of has the entire spectrum open to the glitch effect. Then we have, we get into the delay. We have the possibility to turn on a stereo ping pong delay here, feedback, the delay rate, and the amount of delay. So if we go up here, we can affect that quite nicely. Here's your feedback. All basic stuff. Okay, so that's the delay. Then we have enter the reverb section, we have reverb chorus. Let's put some reverb on. Turn that down a little bit. It's crazy. We have the reverb size. We'll come to the filter. We have the reverb time. We have a very large reverb. Or quite interesting, quite metallic is if we actually make it 0 size and reduces a little bit, some quite metallic tones. Just quite a fun effect with the reverb. I say this is just using the standard reverb within Ableton. Then we have a chorus we can introduce to this. On a larger size. So we can add reverb to all of this madness, if you like. And then we have a reverb filter as well, which effectively does what the loop filter does. It decides for us, or we decide, where we want the reverb to impact. We push it up here, we'll only get the reverb on the higher frequency tones. That down a bit. So we can apply the reverb to the lower. Close that a bit. Turn off that. To the lower frequencies. Or we can restrict the lower frequencies from receiving reverb. We can just open the reverb up. You'll see where, as we do this, we're moving here, we're filtering out the lower frequencies, so we can restrict it to the higher or to the lower. That gives us also more options. Perhaps we go to a drum break, try and not keep it on too long. Let's try this. So let's have a go. So we'll turn off the pitch shift for a second. What do we have? Texture, that's okay, we'll leave that on. So we've got our drum break. Here, turn off the reverb to begin with. Here, as I say, we can decide which part of the drum break is going to be affected. Here you can hear that the bass drum is affected. Or we can keep the bass drum clean, just affect other things. Same with the reverb. We introduce reverb here. Let's go to a small reverb. We introduce the reverb. We can decide, okay, only the higher frequencies are going to be affected. Or we can include bass drum. So we then have some control. We can create these glitchy overtones and use this filter, both of these filters, to just sort of target in on them. There we go. Let's open the reverb up a bit. So only the overtones are being affected. Okay, I hope you get the idea. I hope it's understood. Yeah, and I say, chorus, we can introduce this, maybe go to something a bit more ambient. So we can bring in a delay, bring in the chorus, do some pitch shifting, up to 12 semitones. Decide what we want to glitch, introduce that into the mix. Okay, so I hope that's understood. I said I don't want to make the video too long. I think it might be a good idea now to just explain how this is built and what's going on within the rack. It'll take a little bit of time to put together. It's not too complicated, it's just you have to just be careful as always with your mapping and what you assign here when we do the mapping here. There's quite a few constraints within this rack to get it to work. but we'll come to that in the build now. First thing you'll need then is an audio effect rack here. Just drag one of those into a channel. I've kept my original audio effect rack here, so if you click here, get the macros open, you'll have macro 1, 2, 3. You can right click these and rename them here. You can use my names or choose your own names, it's your choice as always. Let's open them up. We'll be using all of the macros. So let's get our effects into the rack now. So audio effects, audio effects. We have a redux to begin with, at the beginning of the rack. This is followed by a shifter here. Then we have a beat repeat. Here we go, drop that in. Our delay. A reverb. And finally a limiter here. We don't need to look at that again. So we need to set these all up so that we can do our mapping and they're all sort of set up correctly before we start our mapping. So we'll go through them one by one. So the redux, there's nothing we need to do there, so we can close that for a second. Let's have a look at the shifter. In the shifter, I selected for the LFO, I selected the triangle analog. Just a personal choice. You can choose whichever LFO here. You can have a sine or a normal triangle. That was the one I went for. Okay, so that's all set up. We won't be using the delay in the shifter. We'll use a separate delay. The reason being that it tended to keep pitching things up higher and higher with the delay. So I found an external delay was better. So anyway, this one's complete. We'll come back to that in a second then. Then we have the beat repeat. Here we will need to activate the filter. We'll map that in a second. We leave it on mix. This value here we need to increase to 8. We can just type that in and we'll be mapping this, so we'll come back to that in a second. Okay, so that's everything set up for the beat repeat. We can close that as well. Now our delay. So here there's also not a lot to do, in fact nothing, because we will just be mapping here. So we can close the delay. The reverb, here I made a few settings. I turned off the high cut and activated the low cut. This we will map in a second. Then I changed on the diffusion network, I changed the filter type here to a low pass. This we will map in a second. Then this I set at 5.76. And the reflection I reduced a little bit to -2. The diffuse we will map, and the dry wet we'll also map. I put the density at mid, slightly denser delay. And then I activated here the low pass filter as well. We'll map this in a second. Okay, as I say, the limiter, there's nothing we need to do with the limiter. That's just a safety precaution for the rack. So we can go to our mapping now. I think we'll just open these up quickly again. And we'll start doing our mapping. So I have a list here, which I'm just going to go through. So I might be hopping around a bit, hopefully not too much, but I'll just have to follow my list. So for the beat repeat here, I mapped the grid, this value here. This was mapped to the slice size. Then we'll hop to the reverb. Quickly, we'll close these because there's quite a few we can map on the reverb. On the reverb, I mapped the decay time here to the reverb time. I mapped the pre-delay here to the reverb size. I also mapped the reverb size here to the same macro, reverb size. Then the diffuse level here, I again mapped to the reverb size. So there's a lot of setting up in the parameters for these values here, these constraints, which will contribute to making this rack. So that's why a lot of things are mapped to multiple things are mapped to one macro in some instances, but that's all dealt with here. Okay, so that's the reverb size there and the diffuse level. Then we have the filter frequency here, which I mapped to the reverb filter, and also the input. This filter frequency was also mapped to the reverb filter. So we have those two. We then map this low shelf filter here to the reverb filter, and also the gain value here. We'll map that as well to the reverb filter. The diffusion, this diffusion here, is also mapped to the reverb filter, along with the scale value here. So they're all mapped to this one. So it's quite a lot mapped to this function here. Now the reverb dry wet, we map to the reverb dry wet. The reverb chorus, the amount, we map here to reverb chorus, and also the rate will map to reverb chorus. Right, so we can close the reverb, that's all done, and we'll go to our shifter here, and we'll work with these two, the shifter and the redux, to set up our pitch. So the first one is the sample rate here in the redux, which I mapped to pitch texture, along with the bit depth, also to pitch texture. Then we have this LFO rate here from the shifter, that also goes to pitch texture, as does the LFO spin amount here, this value here, that we map again to pitch texture. Then we have this strange thing called window in the shifter, which will also match to the pitch texture. That effectively, for lower frequencies, you have, I think lower values are better for low frequencies and higher values. But anyway, I've manipulated and used it within the texture to some effect. And then we have finally the tone also goes to the pitch texture here. That's also one of these complicated macros. Then we have the pitch coarse, which we map to the pitch shift. The LFO amount here we map to the pitch mix, along with the dry wet here. We'll map that to the pitch mix. Okay, so those are set up there. We can close those and go to our beat repeat. Here we're going to map the interval here to the loop frequency. We're also going to map the gate to the loop frequency. I would have liked to have those on separate controls, but there weren't enough macros, so I've had to compromise here and make an effect using them on the same macro. Then we have the filter frequency here, which we will map to our loop filter. And then we need to open up our delay, because I've also mapped here, this filter here, the loop filter is also mapped, sorry, the delay filter is also mapped to the loop filter as well. Then we have our delay rate here, which I've mapped to delay rate. The ping pong button here is mapped here to delay ping pong. The feedback is mapped to the delay feedback, and the dry wet to the delay dry wet. And let's just jump back to the beat repeat here. We have the chance, which is here. We map that to the delay chance. And finally we have the variation, which we also map to the chance. The purpose being that as we adjust the chance, we're also moving through these different types of variation here. So it just gives it a little bit of a mix up. We don't, if I see we move this through here, we get a different variation as we reduce the chance. So we get different combinations basically. I'm just trying to use as many functions on each macro as possible to get some nice effects. Okay, so that is everything mapped. Now we just need to put the constraints in. As always, I'll put them up take your time, just punch them in, pause the video, punch them all in. There'll be 2 screenshots, won't fit them all on one. And once you've got those all in, as I say, everything should work. I'll see you on the other side and we'll test and make sure everything is okay. Okay, so once you've got all of those punched in, some might seem a bit strange, very small values, but there is a reason for them being such small values, and I've spent quite a lot of time tuning these things. Anyway, let's see if this now works now. I'll go here. I've kept my original snapshots. You can make some snapshots once you get the macro set up how you like. You can create a snapshot here. You save the rack here with this disk icon. If you create new macros, you would also need to resave the rack. This will appear in your user library, presets, effects racks. You'll find it in there. You can drop it into any project. You can use it with external audio, with VSTs, whatever, loops, samples, anything you want. Just drop it in as an effect rack. Okay, so I'll just go here to my bass to begin with, see what happens when we turn this on. Okay, let's try the Atmos. So we have the pitch. Seems to work okay. The amount of pitch shift we can put in. It's all working. Reverb. Let's maybe go to a drum beat quickly. Try that out, see if the filter's working okay. So if we... Here we should only affect the higher frequencies with our glitch, not the bass, or the kick drum. That should now include the kick drum, which it does. So this also, you might have seen in the build, also has an effect on the delay. So we're only going to delay the frequencies that we allow through this filter here. Here we can affect the bass drum, but here, maybe I should explain this in the intro, but this now actually will only add delay to what's coming through this glitch here, the higher frequencies, which is also quite useful if you don't want delay on some frequencies. And the reverb seems okay. Yeah, small reverb, always quite fun. Okay, so it seems to be working fine. Quite a complicated one this time. It's fun, it's an interesting rack. It isn't the Microcosm, but it has some of the interesting quirks of that effect pedal. Hope you enjoyed the video. My name's Andrew. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.